Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. I'm your host for today. We got a fun show to talk about as the first week of college basketball is officially over. The weekend was filled with a lot of great games, including ranked on ranked matchup games. So we're going to talk about all of those. And that's going to transfer us into a lot of ranking talk today. The new AP poll came out today on Monday, about 2 hours ago. And then I'm going to talk about my new power rankings, which is kind of a combination of resume slash, just AP poll-like. It's probably leans more AP poll-like at this point, once we're only pretty much 2 games for just about every team into the season. And then Ken Palm's rankings are also, changing like crazy. So there's going to be a different number one team for me in my power rankings to the AP poll and to Ken Palm's rankings. So we're going to talk about all of that. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the games for the upcoming week. Tuesday is loaded. Monday tonight is, there's 2 games that we'll talk about. And then Tuesday's the best day we've had so far this season. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about, maybe get a little betting talk going, but we're not doing a best bet show just for a Tuesday. So we'll talk about all that. But before we do, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on the post notifications so you stay up to date on the college basketball world. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's in that. And let's dive right into it. So we're going to go all the way back to Friday. And let's start with the big one that took place on Friday, which was number 19, Kansas going to number 25, North Carolina. North Carolina got the win, a huge win for the Tar Heel fan base and quite honestly, probably the Tar Heel coach. They went 87-74. I'll give some, big takeaways from this game, but let's first just point out some great player performances. Caleb Wilson was awesome, 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. He gets in the conversation with all those top freshmen. This is obviously the big theme of college basketball this year, these outstanding freshmen. I loved what Caleb Wilson did in this game. However, I think Henry Visar is their most important player. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in this one. And just what he brings to the table is, I think, just as important to a team as pretty much anyone in the entire country. And then Seth Trimble also added 17 points, 8 rebounds to go with tremendous defense on Darren Peterson. Now, sorry, North Carolina fans, just as you get your good mojo up, you pick up a huge win. Seth Trimble has broken a bone in his forearm in practice, and he's supposed to have surgery, and his timetable to come back is TBD right now. This is just such a horrible blow. I hope he has a quick recovery because North Carolina is going to be a fun team to watch this year. So what's the big takeaways from this game? North Carolina's positional size was the reason that I put North Carolina as a best bet on our last show. That's what we talked about. We talked about it for a while. I don't need to reiterate it. They are huge. And I think it showed out there. They are huge. This kind of tells me, now this is a great win for North Carolina. This kind of told me a little bit more about Kansas than North Carolina, quite frankly. Now, North Carolina, this is a win you want to see. You're a legit threat in the ACC. You're a great team. Nothing against this. However, Kansas, the big scare going into the season was, can Darren Peterson have any help? The answer looks like no, quite frankly. He had 22 points in this one. He was awesome. I will say, in the couple years I've covered college basketball, Darren Peterson is the best shot maker I've ever seen. Freshman to senior to 5th year, COVID senior, whatever. He's the best shot maker I've ever seen in college basketball. He is awesome. Every time it leaves his hand, it's like, oh my goodness. These other freshmen are awesome. I think Darren Peterson's the best. I don't think that's a hot take anymore. I think he is just, every time you watch it, is like, my goodness, he runs like a deer. He's so fast, so quick, so just, his posture just looks awesome. He just looks like a complete athlete. Kind of like how Jeremiah Smith looks like for Ohio State football, where it's just like, my God, he's so smooth. Same with Darren Peterson. He makes shots. He's awesome. The rest of the roster does not look good. Bryson Tiller made some big threes early in the game. They led by 6 at half, Kansas did, and then North Carolina they're just a better team than Kansas is, quite frankly. I know it's a home game for North Carolina, and the fans, maybe if it's at Allen Fieldhouse, it's a different story. I just think North Carolina is a better basketball team than Kansas is, quite frankly. I was getting nervous for North Carolina in the first half, just with this Kansas, because it was kind of obvious that Kansas was not as good as North Carolina. They were just making some shots, Darren Peterson and Bryson Tiller, as mentioned. But the rest of the team just, it doesn't do it. Flory Badunga is going to be good. He's the other player who looks like he kind of belongs. Trey White can be a good piece. However, you can't really rely on him scoring too much. I don't know what to think about Melvin Council, because he can be an awesome defender, but he's a little bit, takes some questionable shots on the offensive end. And then I genuinely feel bad for Elmarco Jackson. I wish he'd have transferred, because he just looks like a deer in the headlights, quite frankly, the the 2 of the 3 seasons he's played last year, he was, hurt for the entire season. And he just, I feel bad for him. I hope he finds a place somewhere because he was a former 5-star and it just isn't working. He doesn't look like a Kansas basketball player. I know he's obviously got the talent for being a 5-star, but it's just not great. So I'm a little bit, I'm worried about Kansas. I don't think they're going to miss the NCAA tournament because Darren Peterson is so good that he raises the floor that much. And obviously the home court environment's awesome. They're going to be great. North Carolina, I'm leaving a lot more optimistic than Kansas, which is kind of just needless to say with such a big win here. Let's talk about the other games that went on Friday, some notable ones. Georgetown went to Maryland and won 70-60. We're going to talk about Georgetown a little bit more in depth here later. They have one of the best backcourts in the country with KJ Lewis and Malik Mack. They're both incredibly improved this year. Speaking of KJ Lewis, this is just a random thought of mine that I think of during the day when college basketball is 100% on the mind. Why was what is up with that Arizona roster from last season? We just talked about Henry Vasar, who was there last year. He's awesome at North Carolina. We know KJ Lewis is awesome at Georgetown. Jaden Bradley is awesome still at Arizona. They also had Anthony Del Orso, and I know Krivas got hurt last year and Awaka was there. And was Caleb Love that much of a, hurt the team sort of guy where it's all these guys were talking about how awesome they are. They were all on Arizona last year. And yeah, I don't know. That's a random thought that went through my mind. But anyways, let's move on. Buzz Williams loses, his first big game at Maryland. VCU and Utah State was kind of just an under the radar, terrific mid-major game. Utah State won the game 80-77. Hopefully someone was able to watch this. I don't know where this game was streamed on. It wasn't on anything I could ever find. So that's a shame. Figure it out, Mountain West. Chattanooga loses to St. Mary's 87-66. No surprise there. Number 1 Purdue beats Oakland 87-77. Oakland led at one point in the second half. Ooh, not good stuff for Purdue. They lose their number 1 rank in the AP poll, in my ranking, and at Ken Pom, all in the span of pretty much this game. Oakland, this is not a good Oakland team, quite frankly. We saw them who did they just get? Absolutely dominant. Michigan. They gave up 121 points to Michigan. Now Purdue, they gave them a game. So shout out Greg Campion squad there. But Purdue looks just a little bit off. They're shorthanded right now. Trey Kaufman-Wren hasn't been able to play. And yeah, Purdue's going to be fine, but they look a little shaky to start the season. I bet Purdue minus 31.5. They were losing in the second half. I figured that bet was dead. However, for those who tuned into the Best Bet show, that was the only bet we lost. So hopefully you got those bets in. So yeah, Purdue, shaky start. UMass Lowell and number 4 UConn was what in the world? I believe I posted on our Instagram story. I can't remember what the score was. I think it was 37-3 at one point. Anyways, they end up winning the game by 63 points. My goodness, UMass Lowell is not a bad program. They've been the second best program in the America East, with respects to Bryant, just behind Vermont. UMass Lowell is pretty solid, and UConn just torched them. Terrace Reed went off in this game. He's awesome. UConn's awesome. Kentucky dominates Valparaiso. No surprise there. We'll talk about Kentucky a little bit later here. Sam Houston plays number 10 Texas Tech. Texas Tech wins 98-77. This was the first game JT Toppin played. He scored 31 points and 14 rebounds. He's awesome. My preseason pick for the player of the year. Utah Tech went to number 13 Arizona, got beat 67-93. We talked that this might be a little bit of a watch out hangover game to start the game for Arizona. It was. Utah Tech, kind of competed with them in the first half, and then Arizona pulled away, as you'd expect, in the second half. But Utah Tech covers, most importantly, and Arizona still looks really good. And then Florida Gulf Coast plays number 17 Illinois. Illinois beat up on them 113-70. No surprise. Missouri with a bit of a scare from SEMO, which is Southeast Missouri. 89-84. They end up winning the game, and kind of a shaky one there. NC State beats UAB. No surprise. Youngstown State goes to Grand Canyon and beats them 90-81. Watch out for Youngstown State in the horizon this year. Staying in Ohio, Ohio State beats Purdue Fort Wayne 94-68. Liberty beat Charleston 90-75. McNeese loses to Santa Clara 79-67. And my boys, UC Irvine, lose at home to Cal Baptist 69-61. And then Oregon squeaks out a win 67-63. They need Jackson Shellstead back bad. All right, let's move on to Saturday and talk about some of the bigger matchups. Let's start with this one, the big one that started at noon. Shout out to Nate Oates, and shout out to Nate Oates in general. He is like the face of just schedule as many impossible games as you can and try and win some of them. And he won this one. He wins at Madison Square Garden against Rick Pitino, 103-96. LeBaron Philon, my guy, 25 points, 10 of 17 from the field. He's awesome. He's on first team All-American official watch. Aiden Holloway had 21 points. Latrell Wrightsell had 17 points in the backcourt. I think this is the best backcourt in the entire country. I might have said this is the best backcourt in the entire country in the preseason. I can't remember, but it is coming to show as long as Latrell Wrightsell is, stays healthy. This team is awesome. And Taylor Bull-Bowen was great in the front court, 17 points, 9 rebounds, and, just kind of controlled the entire game. They controlled the pace, obviously, 199 points. That's what Nate Oates loves to do. I think Nate Oates, and this is going to be crazy to say, is one of the most underrated coaches in the entire country. Now, you might say, how can someone be underrated at Alabama? Not that many people talk about him. He's awesome. He might be coaching at, he might be coaching like the Lakers here in a couple years for all we know. He's got an NBA style offense, and he has kind of transformed college basketball in a way. You see a lot of people following his sort of, I know it's not just him, it's the NBA style. Jake Diebler's doing it now at Ohio State. Nate Oates is awesome. Give Nate Oates any sort of roster and he's going to win. For St. John, Zuby Ejiofor was the guy, 27 points, 10 rebounds. Still just questions in the backcourt. Ian Jackson actually came off the bench in this one. They didn't have Dylan Darling, so they were a little bit shorthanded. But St. John's, it's not an awful loss, but they I think we kind of all know that they just kind of got some things to figure out at this point. All right, let's pull up the full graphic. The other big one was number 14, Arkansas, and number 22, Michigan State. I'm going to get a little cranky here for a little bit because this was an incredibly poorly coached team was Arkansas. Obviously not Michigan State. You didn't think I was going to Michigan State there. Tom Izzo's fantastic. Let's talk about Michigan State first. Let's give them some of their love, and then I'm gonna give it to John Calipari a little bit here. Cam Ward, another freshman, fantastic in this game. 18 points, 10 rebounds. We know Michigan State's always going to be physical, especially with their personnel this year. And then Cohen Carr looked great, especially in the first half early in the game. We really got him off to that strong start. 15 points, 7 rebounds. Maybe the most fun college basketball player we've had in terms of dunking and straight athletic ability since Zion. My goodness, he can fly all over the place. He had a couple plays where it's like, oh my God, how can one just jump like that? He's awesome. Jeremy Fears played tremendous defense as well. I want to give him some love, even though it won't show up in the stat sheet. All right, now let's talk negatively about Arkansas. Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas shoot 10 of 31 from the field. They didn't shoot well. We obviously know they both have a ton of talent. Let me start there. Why are we letting them shoot 31 times, John Calipari? Malik Thomas came off the bench. It was like, hey, we're playing a physical, well-coached team. Go shoot whatever you want to shoot. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we not running an offense? Trayvon Brazile only had 3 points in this one. And what's more concerning about that is he only had 3 points with, 4 seconds left where they needed to tie up the game. And John Calipari, I don't know if it was drawn up. I didn't see it or what he said in the post game. Got into Trayvon Brazile for like a step back 30-footer. That was an air ball. And then the whole controversy that came after it with he hit a Michigan State student with his towel. Was it on purpose? Was it not? I'll leave that up to you. I'm not going to speculate on that. I'm going to speculate on some of the stuff on the court. This looked like an incredibly poor coach team, quite frankly, because Arkansas, and yes, for those wondering, I did bet Arkansas, and that was one of the best bets because Arkansas has so much more talent than Michigan State. I think you can ask anyone. I think you'll ask Michigan State fans, and they'll be like, yeah, but you know what? I wouldn't trade Tom Izzo for John Calipari, and I would agree with that. Because Arkansas has so much talent and they have the size to match up with Michigan State. Nick Pringle can match the physicality. However, when you just let Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff run with their head down and throw up shots, what are we doing here? Let's start to run an offense. Their offense looks stagnant the whole time. Now, a lot of this is credit to Michigan State because I kind of noted last podcast that if Michigan State wants a chance to win this game, obviously the student section is going to have to be an incredible home court environment. And they're going to have to ugly this game up because Arkansas has a lot more talent. They're going to have to make this game physical, ugly, a ton of fouls. And they did. Arkansas played right into their hands. It looked like Arkansas came in with no game plan whatsoever. This made me, this reminded me of like the 2013 season with Calipari at Kentucky, where they were an 8 seed and ended up making the national championship game and lost to UConn in the national championship, where it's like, the team has so much talent, but why are you losing games in the regular season that, like, I know it's losing at Michigan State. It's not that big a deal, but this was like, I understand why Kentucky fans were getting a little bit frustrated with it. It's like, what are we doing here? This was this was kind of a game that I think a lot of people really thought you were going to win because you have one of the best rosters in all of college basketball. Give Nate Oates this team, who we just talked about, give Nate Oates Arkansas. I think they're preseason ranked top 5, and I think they're top 5 right now, quite frankly. So, yeah, I'm blaming that loss on John Calipari. It didn't look like a very well-coached team at all. They're going to be fine. Their floor is as high as, or excuse me, their ceiling is as high as just about anyone in the entire country. They can still win the national championship, but you're going to have to rely on John Calipari to do that. We'll see. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to Oklahoma, number 21 Gonzaga in the late night game. Gonzaga took them down 83-68. Was never really too much of a game. Graham Ike was awesome, 19 points, 11 rebounds. Towson lost to number 2 Houston, no surprise. West Carolina lost to number 6 Duke, no surprise. Holy Cross lost to number 8 BYU, no surprise. Northern Kentucky lost to number 18 Tennessee, no surprise. And then Eastern Washington and Colorado went to overtime. Ooh, Colorado is struggling. They are struggling in the NIL budget, it seems, for basketball. Obviously, they got it for football, but then Weber State also took Utah to overtime. The bottom half Big 12 teams looking a little scary to lower down that conference. Utah did end up winning the game. Some other big games. Memphis beat San Francisco. Good for them. I'm low on Memphis, but they looked pretty solid from what I saw in this game. And, pretty big win against San Francisco, 76-70. Virginia Tech and Providence was an awesome basketball game. Virginia Tech ended up beating them 107-101. Freshman Avdalis, it's like Nicholas, I believe, 33 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 13 of 23 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. He's also technically a freshman, and he looks like he kind of looks like Luka out there, like just the way he plays. It is a lot of fun to watch. He's awesome. Virginia Tech's a legit tournament team. These are 2 bubble-ish teams, in my opinion. And because I gave it to John Calipari, I'm also going to give it to Kim English. This isn't a game you should lose, Kim English. You're picked 4th in the SEC, not in the SEC, in the Big East. Virginia Tech was picked 12th in the ACC. It's credit to Mike Young. Mike Young is a good coach. I've said for a while, I think he's a good coach, and I think he's a better coach than Kim English is. Kim English, this is a year where he's kind of coaching for his life, and they kind of choked this game away down the stretch. Now, this could have been a completely separate narrative because Providence had a shot at the end of regulation that rimmed out twice. It went in and out, went off the backboard, hit rim, and was rimmed out twice. So it could be a completely separate narrative here. And then they just came out flat in overtime. It looked like a team that couldn't be motivated by what I don't believe is one of the better coaches in the Big East. In fact, I would say he's a bottom half coach in the Big East. It's not a game that Providence should lose. It was more of both teams traveled pretty well in this one. Providence has a great fan base. I don't think Kim English is up to Providence expectations at this point. This is a hot seat year for him, and credit to Virginia Tech, credit to Avdalis. You're telling me you couldn't have stopped, some of it. You're telling me Kim English, who's got a defensive background, not good. 107 points to Virginia Tech, be it in overtime, but not looking too great for Providence and Kim English. Providence should have expectations to make the tournament with this roster. However, can Kim English do it? I'm a little hesitant to think so. Vanderbilt went to UCF and won 105-93. Vanderbilt's going to be my team this year. I love Mark Byington. He is a star in the making. If Mark Byington is coaching at Kansas or God forbid, Bill Self has has to retire from health problems or something, or he's, Vanderbilt's an SEC job and it's a good job, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's at a blue blood soon because he's going to be awesome. He already is awesome. And I think Vanderbilt is a top 30 team in the entire country. We'll talk about them here a little bit later in our rankings because they are in our rankings. Charleston lost to Florida Atlantic 94-77. Charleston with a rough little trip there. Chattanooga loses to UNLV 101-69. Akron beats Princeton 104-69. Watch out for Akron. Akron is going to be a potential 12-ish seed come March Madness. They have a lot of talent. They've got a lot of pieces this year. USF wins against George Washington 99-95. It's going to be, in my opinion, a 2-man race in the American this year with USF and Memphis. Both pick up good wins here. Boise State picked up their first win of the year over WAC favorite Utah Valley, 101-77. And then Butler beat IU Indy 112-80. Because we just talk about IU Indy all the time because they're so fun to watch because it is the fastest paced basketball you'll ever see. 192 points in this game, and I believe that is the least they've had this season. So IU Indy, a really fun team. All right, and then let's move on to Sunday's action, which also had some pretty solid games. Most notably, Indiana going to Marquette and drilling them 100-77. Let's give Indiana some love before I'm going to get on these coaches today. I'm going to get on Shaka Smart for this one because this was the worst coaching performance that I saw. This is the most angry I would be if I was a Marquette fan, even opposed to a Arkansas or Providence fan. But Tucker DeVries, 27 points, 9 of 15 from the field, 6 of 9 from three. He had 24 points in the first half, was on an absolute heater. We'll talk about that here in a second. Lamar Wilkerson, 23 points, 8 assists, 8 of 19 from the field, 6 of 10 from three. Indiana is fun. Indiana fans, you guys deserve this. After dealing with Mike Woodson for a while, to get Darian DeVries in here, who is a tremendous basketball coach, and he brings an all-American caliber player in his son with Tucker DeVries, and Lamar Wilkerson's awesome as well. You guys deserve this. You just like Louisville deserved it last year, and even so this year. Indiana fans deserve this. This was a great win to put up 100. In Chicago, where it was, Indiana obviously travels really well, but Marquette's only a couple hours from Chicago, and to do this, it was really good stuff for Indiana. Indiana's here to stay. Marquette. Let's start with Shaka Smart because, as I mentioned, 24 points in the first half for Tucker DeVries. How are we not? Even the announcers? I don't remember who was on the call. It might have been I can't remember who was on the call, but they're like, why do they keep letting Tucker DeVries catch it? Don't let face guard him. Tucker DeVries, no disrespect, is not fast at all. Now he can create his own shot because he's like Dirk Nowitzki like. He is so good at releasing high. But Marquette was just letting him catch the ball and take threes. What are we doing? Do we not have a game plan behind that? Marquette's defense looked shaky in their night one game against Southern, where Southern put up 82 points on Marquette. Now you give up 100 to Indiana, and that's in 100 that probably could have been a lot more, quite frankly. Letting these guys shoot threes like this, your perimeter defense is what is supposed to make you a bubble team this year with Sean Jones, with Chase Ross. That was supposed to be your strength. I thought this team was going to be really good defensively. Their game plan just looks awful. They look like an island of misfit toys out there. I'm not sure what they're doing. Speaking of Sean Jones, let's talk about his game for a second. 20 minutes, 0 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists, and 2 turnovers. Horrible game. He's supposed to be your second best player, probably behind Chase Ross, or whether you want to say Royce Parham is in there as well. Hearing it out, Ben Gold as well. I don't like this Marquette team at all. I like Chase Ross a lot, and I was more optimistic than most. Coming into the season, I had them ahead of Providence, ahead of Georgetown. They don't look good. Their defense looks awful, and I blame a lot of that on Shaka Smart. And here's what I'll say. This led me to think, I'm like, I was so disappointed in this game because, yes, once again, bet Marquette. But decided I was like, I'm going to do some research on Shaka Smart. What has he done since, that Final Four run at VCU, which was awesome? He's kept the floor very high at Marquette. Don't get me wrong. Made the Sweet 16 once, ever, outside of that or at Marquette outside of that VCU run. He's made the Sweet 16 once. He's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. Didn't look good in this one. Is he a little overrated as a coach? We're going to see. I really like Shaka Smart as a guy. I hope he can figure it out and get this team to the tournament, but this was a horrible coaching job. I saw this, and another just part of this game that made me so mad was the foul calls. We posted on our Instagram. It was like 8 minutes left in the first half, and both teams weren't just in the bonus. They were in the double bonus. Please keep the whistles out of your mouth. I know this is what we're trying to make college basketball, is more of a scoring game. It was like unwatchable for a while. It was so frustrating to watch, and it was just an ugly, ugly game for Marquette. All right, enough talking about that. Let's move on and talk about Washington and Baylor, where Baylor got them at home 78-69. Baylor's home environment was pretty much rocking last night. And, Cam Carr has kind of separated as Baylor's go-to guy, which we were kind of unsure who it would be coming into the season. 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 of 7, only took 7 shots, had 16 points, really good. 3 of 5 from the three-point line. He's a bona fide, watch out for first team all Big 12 caliber player. He looks really good. Washington, I'm not too worried about it. Shout out to Danny Sprinkle for, getting this game and going to Baylor this early with a new team. Desmond Claude hasn't been able to play, but Baylor, they're back. Baylor's in competition with Kansas for probably that 6th spot in the Big 12 right now. Other results around the country, North Texas won against Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago is really struggling. 64-62, my pick to win the A-10. Ooh, not looking too good. South Dakota State lost to Northern Iowa 65-58. West Virginia beat Lehigh 69-47. How about this one, though? Oklahoma State beats Texas A&M 87-63 without Anthony Roy, who's probably going to be their leading scorer. Tremendous win for Steve Lutz and Oklahoma State. They look like a tournament team to me. Liberty drilled Florida Atlantic 88-68. Missouri beat VMI. Arizona State beat Utah Tech. Yeah. And then Southern Miss took South Carolina to overtime. Michi Johnson had to hit a huge three to get this game even to overtime, where they won in overtime 83-79. Michi Johnson just try and keep track of where he's at, whether it's Ohio State or South Carolina. South Carolina, no offense, just kind of a boring team to me this year. It's sad. I know they don't have a lot of money, and I think Lamont Paris is a great coach, but yeah, just kind of a boring team in my opinion. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into the rankings, AP poll, my rankings, and the KenPom rankings. We'll be back. Into finding the best deals on Amazon, specifically college gear. It is my go-to for the holiday season, whether it is hoodies, long sleeves, or even t-shirts. I decided to put all these great deals that I personally find on my Amazon storefront. For the bracket science fans that don't want to spend a lot on college gear, this is the place for you. Take a look at our brand new storefront. The link is in the description. Even hit the follow button on there so you don't miss a great deal on the best college apparel. Alrighty, let's talk about the AP poll first. What order should we do this? Should we do AP poll, KenPom, then our rankings? Yeah, let's do that. Start with the AP poll. So Houston jumps Purdue. Houston is now your number one team in the country. Purdue drops down. I don't hate it at all. I don't have Houston or Purdue. We'll talk about that here in a second. UConn's at number 3. Duke's up at number 4. Arizona all the way up to number 5. Michigan's at 6. BYU at 7. Alabama at number 8. Kentucky stayed put at number 9. Florida dropped down to number 10. Texas Tech and Louisville at 11 and 12. St. John's dropped down to 13, all the way from 5. Illinois up to 14. UCLA 15. Iowa State 16. Michigan State moves all the way up to 17, and North Carolina moves up to 18. Gonzaga up to 19. Tennessee dropped a couple spots to 20. Just, needed to make room for Michigan State and North Carolina. Nothing wrong with that. Arkansas drops down to 21. Auburn's still ranked at 22, even though Bethune-Cookman took them to overtime. Creighton at 23. Wisconsin at 24. And Kansas is your last team at 25. So all 25 teams that were ranked last week were also ranked this week, even though we saw a couple losses. One thing I will not, actually, you know what? Let's save that for our rankings. First, let's talk about the KenPom rankings. So Houston, number 1 in the AP poll. Kentucky, Mark Pope, number 1 at KenPom right now. Now, beating Valparaiso badly is going to help that. Kentucky is number 1 at KenPom. Houston's number 2, and Illinois is number 3. How about the Fighting Illini? Duke's at 4, Florida at 5, UConn at 6, Purdue all the way down to 7. Purdue was number 1 going into their game against Oakland. They're now down to 7. Gonzaga's at 8, Michigan's at 9, Arizona at 10. Louisville at 11, Iowa State 12, Tennessee 13, Texas Tech 14. Vanderbilt, Mark Byington, all the way up at number 15, 5th in offensive efficiency, you can see there. How about Vanderbilt under Mark Byington? BYU's down at 16. Alabama's at 17. I thought they would have climbed up there. Alabama is also, I should note, probably for those who aren't too familiar with KenPom, there is preseason bias in this. It's not like Kentucky's been the best team this season. Like they were top 5, I believe, to start the season. And then after playing well, as the season goes on, the preseason bias goes away. So like Alabama's 17, they're 14th in offense. How that's possible, they'll end up top 5. Wisconsin at 18, Baylor all the way up at 19, ahead of St. John's, who's at 20. Indiana, how about that, up at 21. USC at 22. North Carolina 23. Clemson, not a lot of people talking about Brad Brownell's squad. Little hesitant on them as well. We'll talk about them here in a little bit at 24. NC State at 25. Ole Miss at 26. Arkansas at 27. Way down there at 27. Mississippi State 28. Kansas and UCLA falling a little bit. Kansas 29. UCLA 30. San Diego State 31. Georgia 32. Georgia is scoring an incredible amount of points right now. I believe they put up 102, or have they played 3 games yet? I think they put up 120 the other night. Team can really score it. Michigan State's down at 33, Ohio State at 34, and Missouri at 35. All right, let's talk about my rankings because I want to talk about the reasoning behind some of them. My number 1 team is UConn. For those who have listened to the podcast for a while, UConn's been my pick to win the national championship. I had them coming into the season number 3, I think. Had them maybe number 4 after Florida, but coming into the season, I had them there, and I saw enough from Houston where they've looked. Houston's awesome. For anyone putting Houston number 1, not going to blame you at all, including the AP poll. I think that was justified. They just, they look like they need a little bit more time to mesh. And this was kind of just my perfect opportunity to just go with what I believe in this season, and that is UConn. I think the roster construction is awesome. I had Purdue at number 1. I dropped them all the way to number 5. That game against Oakland was scary. I think they'll get back and they will be fine, but maybe once they play some, real competition, they'll, play up to the level. So we'll see. They got a big one coming up, which we'll talk about today. I have Duke at number 3 and Kentucky at number 4. I have Texas Tech up at number 6. So I didn't bring up Arizona and Alabama as much as, maybe some. I know Arizona's 5 in the AP poll. I have them at 7. That's still respectable. Top 10 in the country. Alabama at number 8, right behind them. I got them there. I just think Texas Tech is kind of a team I've just bought in on all season long. I think they're going to be awesome. Florida at number 9. I didn't drop them too far. Michigan at number 10, BYU at 11, Louisville at number 12, Illinois at 13, Tennessee at 14, UCLA at 15. Don't really know what to do with UCLA. They've looked a little scary, but I'm still optimistic about this team. Gonzaga at 16. I dropped St. John's all the way down to 17. They just got to figure out that point guard play and they got to find an identity, in my opinion. The roster construction, that was a big thing for a lot of people coming into this year. It just doesn't look great, quite frankly. Now, Rick Pitino, that's not a guy you should bet against, but yeah, I got him down at 17. North Carolina right behind him at 18. Michigan State at 19. Iowa State at 20. Arkansas at 21. Wisconsin 22. NC State at 23. I love NC State this year. I think they're going to be great. They have already shown that they're going to be great. They beat UAB by 24 the other day. Georgetown at 24. Why are we not giving Georgetown any respect? So there was a ton of hype after they beat Kentucky in an exhibition. Take it as you will. It's an exhibition game. I know it's not a huge thing. But then when you go to Maryland and just pretty much dominate the entire game in a tough environment, Georgetown got 1 vote in this week's AP poll. That's blasphemy, if you ask me. 1 vote for this Georgetown team who just went and dominated a team who, like, Maryland should be fighting for an NCAA tournament berth at worst. Georgetown is back. This roster is good. That game against Kentucky was not a fluke. Obviously, when you go and beat Maryland, how they did, turned on the game after, what game was it after? I don't remember, but it was, or it might have been to start. I don't know, but it was 11-0. When I turned the game on, I'm like, my goodness, this Georgetown has a little something to them. I got him at 24. I have him in the top 25. I also have Vanderbilt at 25. Like I said, they're 15th at KenPom. They're awesome. Indiana up next at 26. They're going to be great as well. San Diego State at 27. I did drop Missouri quite a bit after that game against SEMO, which I watched a lot of. It looked a little scary, but I still like this Missouri team. The only 3-0 team on here. Dropped Kansas all the way down to 29, and from AJ Storr's previous team to his new team, Ole Miss at 30, who just they got some opportunities this week that we'll talk about here in a second. So normally I do next 10, I did next 15 because I wanted to give some more teams some love. Creighton, who unfortunately I had to drop out of the rankings just to make room for Indiana and Georgetown. So Creighton, sorry, but you're still good. Baylor, I got all the way up there. I wanted to rank them, just not quite there yet. Iowa. We'll see what happens when they play some elite competition. Virginia, I also had to drop out of the rankings just to make room, but those 4 teams, if you want to rank all of them, then I think there's a little bit of a drop off to Ohio State, who's awesome offensively, not going to be too great defensively. Utah State, after their big win against VCU, USC, who's highly ranked at KenPom, St. Mary's, who looks awesome again, just an unbelievable coach that Randy Bennett is. Mississippi State, who's got a big one tonight. Cincinnati, Villanova, Oklahoma State, had to throw on here. Auburn, I dropped them last week, but they looked better, so throw them back on here. Georgia, who, like I said, is scoring the ball at will, and then Clemson, who just, kind of flying under the radar, but a little bit concerned about just their overall roster talent-wise, but Brad Brownell has won, and obviously KenPom believes in him, so why shouldn't I? All right, we're going to take one more break here while I pull up the rest of the graphics, and then we will talk about the games to know for this upcoming week of hoops. We'll be right back. To find affordable golf instruction. For example, let's take a look at this man's swing. Pulling the club head a little bit inside his line instead of working his hands up the plane is causing a little bit too much turn at the top. You can see his club shaft pointing way to the right, which forces that club to come in steeper than it should, hands a little too far away from the body, instead of being in the slot, which will force a little bit of early extension here to get the club path back on target. For just $10, you can get a swing review just like this. Follow Brandon Jadich Golf and send a DM that says Bracket Science for just a $10 swing review. It's all you need. You don't need to spend $100 on a lesson. Just get your swing review and fix it yourself. Alrighty, let's start with Monday night, where the big one is at 8 o'clock on ESPNU, where Mississippi State goes to number 16 Iowa State. Iowa State favored by 5.5 in this game. Mississippi State, how far can Josh Hubbard take them? I don't know the status of Tamin Lipsey. I don't think he's going to play. I probably should have checked before this. If he doesn't play, it's going to be a tough spot for Iowa State. I still would think at Hilton, it's never easy to bet against Iowa State. I would lean Iowa State, but at 5.5, that seems about right, especially if Tamin Lipsey doesn't play. But fun matchup there. Josh Hubbard, anytime to watch him is going to be a lot of fun. And then at 8:30 on FS1, Santa Clara and Xavier. This game's at Xavier. Xavier's favored by 3.5 in this one. This seems like kind of a perfect opportunity for Santa Clara. Xavier has not looked good to start the year. I actually like Santa Clara to cover 3.5 in this game, maybe even win the game. Santa Clara looks pretty solid to start the season. Xavier does not, but you never know. It's Richard Pitino. It's still Xavier. It's still a Big East school. Not going to bet it, but looks intriguing to me. Santa Clara plus 3.5. All right, let's talk about Tuesday. This is the day to know. Like I said, the best slate we've had all season long. Starting at 6:30 on FS1, Wake Forest takes on number 6 Michigan. Michigan's favored by 11 in that one. These are the Ken Pom lines. The betting lines aren't out yet for Tuesday. This is the Ken Pom lines, which obviously influences the betting lines. At 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus, Dayton goes to Cincinnati. Cincinnati favored by 6 in this one. Two schools separated by just about an hour. Pretty notable rivalry game. Not as big as Cincinnati Xavier, obviously, but pretty big rivalry as well. 7 o'clock on the SEC Network, another rivalry game. Florida State goes to number 10 Florida. Florida favored by 17 in that one. We'll see what Luke Laux can do in his first huge matchup. Speaking of rivalry games, 8 o'clock on ESPN, number 9 Kentucky takes on number 12 Louisville. Louisville favored by 1 at Ken Pom in that one. And that's with Kentucky being number 1 in the country at Ken Pom. So this is going to be exciting. Two programs that are back, legit Final Four threats. Can't wait to watch this one. 8 o'clock on ESPN. I'm not betting this game. I don't care if it hits me 2 minutes before the game where I'm like, oh, I really like that. I just want to enjoy this game. It's going to be a lot of fun. At 8:30 on FS1, number 11 Texas Tech takes on number 14 Illinois. Illinois is favored by 6 in this game. However, this line is not going to be this big because it was just reported that Tomislav Visic, who is, in my opinion, Illinois' most important piece, will not be able to play in this game due to an injury. So Texas Tech will probably be, an underdog by 2.5, maybe 3.5 in this one. And that should, really help JT Toppin's chances to have a big game in this one. But I'm really excited to see this matchup as well. At 9 o'clock on the SEC Network, Memphis taking on Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by 8 in that one. Really fun matchup. 10 o'clock on ESPN, number 23 Creighton takes on number 19 Gonzaga. Gonzaga favored by 10 at Ken Pom in that one. Creighton's down in like the 40s at Ken Pom. Gonzaga favored by 10. Line won't be that big. I bet it'll be like 6.5, 7.5. But fun matchup at 10 o'clock. Also at 10 o'clock, for some reason, Ohio always ends up being on the games to watch for some reason. I'm not sure why, just because they keep playing like random opponents. And like here, I was like, there's 7 really good games and I need one more. But anyways, they play at St. Mary's, who's favored by 16 in that game. So Ohio getting a little bit of unexpected love. Alrighty, let's talk about Thursday's matchups. Thursday has Wednesday. We don't really have anything good, quite frankly. Thursday is good though. So let's talk about Thursday. 4 games. Try to make this graphic a little pretty with some different font, as you can see, just because there's only 4 games, kind of a boring graphic. But Pitt goes to West Virginia. This is a fun rivalry matchup. 6 o'clock on FS1. West Virginia favored by 3 in that one. 2 teams I'm a little down on this year, but we'll see if either of them can, make a push towards the NCAA tournament. At 6:30 on the Big Ten Network, San Jose State takes on number 17 Michigan State, who's favored by 17. I would expect that line to be a little bit bigger than the big one of the week, maybe of the year, if you might say so. 7 o'clock on ESPN2, number 2 Purdue takes on number 8 Alabama. Alabama favored by 1 in that one at Ken Pom. If Alabama wins this game, is the winner of this game number 1 in the country? I know Alabama is number 8. but none of the top teams have really done anything too incredibly special outside of Arizona, who's number 5. Alabama has a win against, preseason number 1, now number 2 Purdue, and a win at preseason number 5 St. John's. Are they number 1 in the country? If Purdue wins, they'll definitely be number 1 in the country because they're just going from number 2 to number 1. That's a highly intriguing matchup. The backcourts, I hope Trey Kaufman-Wren's able to play in this one to have the full ability of this being an awesome matchup. But LeBaron Philon, Latrell Wrightsell, Aiden Holloway, who we just talked about with Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, CJ Cox. Going to be a fun matchup, 7 o'clock ESPN2. I will be tuned in on a random Thursday, too. College basketball is never good on Thursdays. Shout out to Nate Oates and Matt Painter for scheduling this game. 9 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Cal, who is off to an undefeated start, hasn't played anyone, but undefeated nevertheless, takes on Kansas State and PJ Haggerty, who's favored by 7 in this one. We'll see what both of these teams can be this upcoming season. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. We'll be back on Friday to talk about, the weekend slate and review some of these results. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Thanks to everyone who stuck with me. Only about 40 minutes. I'm trying to keep these podcasts around 30 minutes because I know it's a lot of talking, and it's a lot of talking for me. It's a lot of listening for you guys. So appreciate everyone who stuck with me here. Like and subscribe before heading out, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Enjoy these games for the upcoming week. It'll be a lot of fun. Enjoy the rankings. Check us out. We'll see you later.